Following up from the last week, we are going to read one more story about possession. Last episode focus was on how to get rid of ghosts, but this week's focus is more on the scary and unexpected development of a case of possession. In the quiet countryside village, a woman is taken over by spirits, and her family also becomes the subject of various scenes of horror. It does feel slightly a bit too detailed and graphic to be a true account from decades ago, but as usual, let us read it with an open mind, if with a pinch of salt. So, here's an allegedly true story about a possessed aunt. It's always handpicked, translated, and narrated by a host, Anthony. The story goes back in 1990, when I was 9. I was born and grew up in a small countryside village, and as sometimes is the case for such a setting, relatives on my father's side all lived in the same village, most notably my aunt, Dad's older sister, who lived just 10 meters away from us. I loved and still love my aunt. She adored me a lot, sometimes even more than her own children. But then, that one fateful day, I was on my way home from school. I had to pass Aunt's house first before reaching mine, so I just habitually looked over the fence as I passed Aunt's and saw her standing on the open floor, giggling and speaking in a weird manner. "I'm so fast! Get it! Too fast! I was young, and she was my beloved aunt, so I didn't think anything of it. "Oh, Auntie, that's not funny," I said, and just moved on. As soon as I dropped my backpack back at home, the phone rang. It was Aunt. "Come over. I made some cookies, your favorite." Back in those days, in that countryside, nobody used a fancy English word like cookie. Neither anybody had an oven in the entire village, and for sure I didn't know what that meant either. "What's that, Auntie? Something to eat?" I asked, but Aunt hung up with no reply. I went over to Aunt's, but I could not find her. "Auntie! Auntie!" I headed to the kitchen calling for her. Contrasting to the bright outside, I could not see much in that black pit of the kitchen. But certainly she wasn't there either, and as I was about to turn to a bedroom, Aunt crawled out from behind the kitchen door, squeaking weirdly. In her hand was her biggest kitchen knife. I just dropped on the ground. The situation was just beyond anything I could have imagined, that I didn't even think to run. Meanwhile, Aunt was right up to me, making that unintelligible moans all the time. "Hey, sister, what are you doing?" Guess it was my luck that my uncle happened to pass by and saw what was happening. He jumped in and snatched the knife away. I fell ill and was bedridden for 3 days, and so was my aunt, I heard. On the 5th day, family called in a shaman to perform a cleansing ritual. But Aunt's condition didn't improve quickly. And the following is what my mom remembers. She went over to check on her sister-in-law. Upon arrival, she called out for my aunt, but the house was eerily silent, like the aftermath of a plague that killed everybody. My mom is neither superstitious nor very fearful, but she would say there was something weird in the air that day. Her lone voice echoing around. Even Aunt's dog behaved strangely, She first barked at Mom, which was in itself unusual because she knew Mom very well. But soon she hid herself in the kennel and just mourned low, giving Mom a guilty stare. Mom could not find Aunt anywhere, so first went to feed the cows in the cow shed. The shed was sizzling hot under the midday sun. Somebody covered around the cow shed with a large canvas. To ventilate the heat off, Mom pulled the canvas down, but it wouldn't budge. Mom looked around if it was caught on something, but could not find anything obvious, so pulled it down harder this time. And it was then she heard a low but hard panting from the other side of the cow shed. Mom hurriedly went around and found Aunt holding onto one corner of the canvas.
"Don't touch it. Keep them warm. I'm gonna eat them later. Don't touch, I say,"
Aunt said with a weird sneer in her voice.
"Oh, sister, what are you doing here? Please pull yourself together. What's going to happen to the family with you behaving like this?"
Mom said, with her eyes welling up with tears.
"Mind your own business. We are having fun, she and I. Mighty fun, isn't it?"
said Aunt, nodding her head in an abnormal speed. Mom pulled Aunt back in her room, hid all the knives in the kitchen, and made some porridge for Aunt. But when she brought the porridge to Aunt's room, there was nobody. The room was right next to the kitchen, and had Aunt went out, Mom wouldn't have missed the creaking of the old wooden floor. Mom knew Aunt was still in the room.
"Sister, I know you are in there. Come out and have some porridge," said Mom, and opened up the wardrobe door and dropped on the floor for what she found there. Aunt was sitting on the pile of duvet inside, with her head between her legs and scratching on the wardrobe wall like mad. Sputtering what could be an excessive amount of spit or sweat, Aunt growled at Mom.
"I called in one more for you. He's right behind you. Now, it's just 4 of us here. You, I, she, and he. You whore! Why aren't you greeting to him?"
Mom instinctively looked back, but there was nothing but the bowl of porridge.
"Oh, okay, sister. All right, now come out."
Mom pulled Aunt out of the wardrobe and brought the porridge up to Aunt. Aunt dribbled at the sight of the porridge.
"You eat it first. You put something in it, didn't you? Herbicide, didn't you?"
Then she took the bowl, took one big spoonful of porridge, and waved it to the empty space, saying,
"You eat it. I'm not gonna eat what that whore made. You eat it."
Then she sat on the floor with her legs spread, put her face in between, and scratched her own feet till it bled.
"I'm gonna eat this instead." "Why? You wanted to?"
Seeing her sister-in-law's feet and hands turn red with blood, and she suck on them, Mom couldn't help but get stiff with fear.
"Come, quick! She's not herself now. Get inside her now!"
Aunt's scream alerted Mom. But somehow her legs felt like wet sponge and dropped on the floor. Aunt dragged herself with her hands right up to Mom and looked straight into Mom's eyes.
"If you don't take him, she has to take him too." Isn't it fun? So stop resisting and take him.
Aunt's eyes were shaking and rolling, making it impossible to tell where she was even looking at. Mom had it more than she could take and ran back home. I didn't know what she experienced then, but I remember her bursting into bitter sobs, holding me in her arms. But both Dad and Aunt's husband were away that night for some business. Mom couldn't leave her sister-in-law alone in that state, despite of what happened earlier in the day. This time, Mom couldn't dismiss the creepy feeling as she entered the house. The dog that was barking got dead silent and disappeared into a kennel as soon as Mom entered the yard. There was some sweet scent in the night air. Mom followed the smell and found a bush full of flower that she didn't know existed. She touched the flower and got stung by the sharp thorn of the bush. Her finger was bleeding. She needed a paper or something to wipe it out, but she didn't feel like going into the house, feeling her knees going soft just by the thought of it. So she headed instead to the outside privy. The old-fashioned privy was stinky and dark, but Mom anyway got in and rolled out some paper to wipe her finger. There was a quick steps and the privy door closed with a bang. "I know it's you, sister. Now open the door." Mom tried her best to sound calm and tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. Stuck there, Mom didn't know what to do. As her eyes got used to the darkness inside, she saw a single stream of feeble light from the wall, and her eyes instinctively followed it back. What she saw was Aunt's face looking in, blocking the small privy window. "Why are you doing this? I'm sorry if I did anything wrong to you." So shocked and scared, Mom pleaded with tears.
What are you scared of? Me? I'll be more scared of him sitting right in front of you,
Aunt said. Mom looked ahead, and on the privy wall were eyes, nose, and a mouth twitching. With another quick steps, Aunt's face disappeared from the window, and with that moonlight flooded in. And the light revealed the face on the wall even more clearly. It sneered and moved its lips as if saying something. Mom screamed, and the cows in the shed next to the privy also cried out. When Mom opened her eyes again, the face wasn't there anymore. Mom instinctively backed up and rolled her wet eyes around the space. And from each side walls jutted out arms and pinned Mom to the wall, while the sneering face appeared once again from the front wall, and long black hair fell from the ceiling, covering Mom's screaming face. It was Dad who found Mom in the privy. Mom was bedridden the following day. Aunt and her husband came to visit her with a posy of flower. Mom took the bouquet but dropped it again with a sharp moan. The thorn on the stem stung her finger. I can't be sure, but I think the flower was from the same bush Mom saw the previous night, because there was no flower shop otherwise in that entire village. In the room were Mom, I, Aunt, and her husband, but nobody said anything for a long time.
It was Aunt's husband who broke the heavy silence first.
Are you feeling any better, I hope? My wife seems to be still weak, but doing not too bad as I see her.
There was a certain nuance that he couldn't understand why Aunt should act out only when she was with Mom.
Good to hear she's doing better. I guess both I and sister got exhausted and not ourselves recently,
Mom replied vaguely. Aunt was keeping silent, quite indifferent to the conversation, and just giving an empty stare ahead. I was sad and worried if my loving aunt was lost forever. The sparse conversation died away soon, and as to change the atmosphere, Aunt's husband told me to follow him out. He lit a cigarette outside and sighed deep.
I don't know what's going on with everybody. You're a big boy now, aren't you? Take care of your mom, okay? There, inside my car, I got some snacks and drinks for you, boys,
he said to me, and I was already running to fetch the snacks even before he finished his sentence. Soon he had to leave for some business, and I set myself on the open floor, happily munching away a big bag of snack. Frankly, I didn't want to go back to Mom's room and the suffocating air inside. And all the while, Mom and Aunt were now alone in the room. Mom's memory seems to be a bit fuzzy, but what she reluctantly recounted was, she was just lying there quietly because she wasn't feeling like a usual small talk with Aunt. She wanted to take a rest, but some buzzing noise in her ear, like that of a mosquito, didn't let her fall asleep.
I think I talked to your aunt first, though I don't remember what I said. But whatever it was, her face turned pale, and she covered her face,
Mom would say. I guess it was after that I was startled by a scream from Mom's room. The scene I found in the room was terrifying. Aunt seemed to have been cornered to one end of the room, scratching the wall with her nails till they bled. Mom was sitting up on bed, with a weird sneer on her face. Her head was turning towards Aunt stiffly. Then she slowly climbed up on the low chest of drawers and pointed at 3 corners of the ceiling.
Do you see that? There are 3 in this room. That makes 4, including me. Come, hold me up there,
Mom said, glaring at Aunt. It wasn't anything like Mom I've known.
Close the door!
Mom yelled at me. I just slammed the door and ran out barefooted. Just outside the house, I ran into my 1-year-older brother. All I could think was, why he? We need Dad or Uncle. Oi, what are you doing here? Why are you crying? He said. I told him Mom wasn't herself and we needed to fetch an adult right away. But, what are you talking about? Where's Mom? Isn't Dad home? Brother just walked past me into the house, not noticing how serious I was. There was no way I was going back in the house. I just ran to Grandma's across the chilly field to fetch little uncle. Meanwhile, following is my brother's account. First thing he saw was a big bag full of snacks Aunt brought for us. Instantly forgetting what I said, he sat down there and opened a bag of snack. But soon he heard a strange, spell-like chant from Mom's room. Only then he remembered that I said Mom wasn't all right. My brother's frankly bit of a chicken. Even as an adult, whenever I watch a horror film, he would cover his eyes and shout to change the channel. So he first just stuck his ear to the door to listen to what was going on inside.
Why am I the only one suffering? It's unfair! Why are you disturbing our peace?
It was Mom shouting. Brother opened the door ajar to peep in. Aunt was all in tears, and in front of her was Mom. She was opening and clenching her jaw like a robot, her teeth clattering loudly each time. She then pushed Aunt's head with her hand, and Aunt just collapsed down to the floor. Mom mounted on her and said with her mouth wide open,
The cows I fed, the field I plowed, the herbicide I drank, I did all that to keep the house. And how dare you taking my house over? Just die, you worthless scum! You should all just die!
then turning her head stiffly towards the door where Brother was peeping in.
Herbicide! Yes, I need herbicide. Where is it?
Brother was startled and stepped away. He hid himself behind the door with his eyes clenched shut, till he felt a hot breath at the back of his neck. He turned around and saw Mom's glaring eyes between the crack-opened door.
Don't just watch it. Go and fetch some herbicide.
She then dragged Aunt out by her hair, and that was the last thing Brother remembers as he passed out at that point. I think it took good half an hour when I came back with little uncle. Our call for Mom and Aunt was only met by hollow echoes. We checked all the rooms, but they were empty. Uncle told me to stay in my room, but I wasn't going to be left alone. It was in the kitchen where we finally found them. My brother wasn't himself, looking half paralyzed. Aunt was on the ground, shivering. And Mom was on Aunt's chest, with one hand covering Brother's mouth. She slowly and stiffly turned her head to me and Uncle.
Shit! You are too early!
Uncle jumped in, pushed Mom away, and lifted both my brother and Aunt. Only then Aunt drew a big breath and said,
Your sister-in-law must be possessed. Call your brother now. We need a shaman.
Mom doesn't remember it herself, but apparently she wasn't herself the moment she visited Aunt's place the previous day. According to what shaman explained later, the ghosts that possessed Aunt first, when driven out by the cleansing ritual, sneaked into Aunt's dog and cows, and jumped onto Mom when she came around. Unlike what Mom remembers she did, she wandered around Aunt's house, gradually losing her mind more and more. When she found Aunt in the room, Mom locked her in the wardrobe and later tried to feed her a mash made with water and newspaper, claiming it to be a porridge. Later that night, when Dad found Mom in Aunt's privy, she was holding onto the door inside, and Dad had to almost break the door to open it. Again, according to the shaman, the ghosts that tried to possess both Mom and Aunt were territorial spirits that used to occupy the abandoned house that used to stand there before Aunt's family demolished it to build their own home. Apparently, the demolished old house was notorious as a haunted house among the villagers. The ghost took a grudge and decided to reclaim their territory. It took 3 cleansing rituals over a month in conjunction with psychiatric treatments for Mom to recover her former self again. The psychiatrists wouldn't, of course, agree with the shaman's explanation, He suggested that Mom's exhausted state of mind might have been triggered by the potentially hallucinogenic substance from the flower bush. Regardless of whose explanation is closer to truth, I'm just happy that I got my mom and aunt back. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Personally, it wasn't an easy one to narrate, with the various different characters, and especially to pull off the scary gibberishes in a possessed state. I hope they were not too cringy. If you enjoyed my work, please leave it a like and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Buy Me a Coffee supporters enjoy an early access to my new video. Thank you. I'll come back with something different next Sunday. Until then, stay safe and take care.